Hi, welcome to GAMEpoch, the show where I play through the history of games in order of their release, starting with Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo, and now I am playing The Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo. Since the last episode, I died. I've been very frustrated for the last little while. I wandered around, I even left the dungeon, I got a whole bunch of rupees, and now I am about to get the bomb upgrade. It's actually more useful than it looks, even though it's only 4 more maximum. That's still pretty nice. I'm pretty happy about that. But now I'm ready to finish this dungeon. So, let's finish this up and see what that whole Dig Dogger hates certain kind of sound comment was about. Again, with the instruction manual thing, with these old games, as I mentioned, they had in them, you know, plot and story, which still wasn't a whole lot most of the time, but it was way more than you would ever really get in-game most of the time. Actually, Ninja Gaiden was a first for changing that. I mean, aside from a role-playing game where it's like all story. And so, but also there would be the bestiaries, which would include a list of all of the, or many of the monsters that you would see in the game and what their names were. Maybe even a tip on how you could beat them. I don't know about bosses. In fact, while I did own some of these games at a point or another, most of the time I didn't really get the instruction manuals, not until I had my own systems, which started with the Genesis and Super Nintendo, and, you know, from there, Game Boy Color, and... Actually, my first Game Boy was a Game Boy Pocket. And, you know, moving up from there to the 64, the PlayStation, blah blah blah. Then with those games, I would keep the instruction manuals for as long as possible, which was longer than when my siblings were the ones who had the systems, but, you know, still not perfect. But anyway. So I actually don't know if the instruction manual bestiaries would have the bosses in them. But a lot of the time you would be able to know what enemies they were talking about if you had your instruction manual handy and were able to go in there and take notes. Or, not take notes, but, you know, take note of what was being said in the game and look it up or whatever. Nowadays, you know, all these games have, a lot of them have bestiaries inside the game. But I think we're also at the point where, you know, even though many games, most if not all, are also released with a player's guide, a strategy guide, you know, that tells all the secrets. I'm going to kill these guys now since I'm not quite as desperate for money as I was. I mean, that's the thing that's a bummer about having your money be your ammo, is if you are needing to save up money, it sucks to have to use it just to shoot off a weapon. So check this out. Since I'm here, I might as well just try this really quick. I haven't been able to get into the eye from these other rooms, but what about here? I was right! Alright. So, secret power is said to be in the arrow. I think that's actually talking about the next dungeon. It's kind of strange that that's in this dungeon, but anyway. So this enemy, this weird wheel thing, round with an eye in the middle, is apparently called Dig Dogger, which hates certain kind of sound. If you're, you know, clever enough to figure out how to get into the tail area of this map, you'll go down and you'll find what I found, which was the flute or the recorder. That makes a sound when you play it, which should be recognizable to many of you who have played Mario 3, or who have listened to the introduction to Ocarina of Time. Yeah. That's that tune. Ask me how long it took for me to realize that. It was recently. I'll just put it that way. And so he becomes small and you can actually beat him. Otherwise he's invincible. So that would have been pretty frustrating if you didn't know how to get through the rest of this dungeon. Game was challenging, man. This was not super easy stuff. But there it is. So that's Dungeon 5. Now I'm going to go collect a couple of things before I head to the western part of Hyrule, which I now can access because of the stepladder. It's possible to access it by going through the Lost Woods, but again, you have to figure out the pattern. And in fact, if I think about it, I think that they may have designed it that way, where you can easily get there once you have the stepladder that you get at, you know, halfway through the game, but can't get back in the way that you can normally leave unless you figure out the pattern of the Lost Woods, because you can leave through the south through the Lost Woods, and you can't get back in. So now we can head over to this area because of the stepladder, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. There are actually warps in this game. I have not figured out the system, because it's a little bit complex, it's a little confusing, and not quite super easy to figure out how to do it. Oh, that actually just happened by accident. So when you first walk into a room, if you stay where Link is as soon as he walks in, you can't attack. You have to move out of the entrance before you can start attacking. That said, I also think that you can't get hurt, so you can actually kind of stand there and safely survey the room, try to get a feel of what you're up against, and maybe think about what you want to do, how you want to get through there. Kind of interesting little quirk. Not sure if that was deliberate, if that was kind of an, oh, well, hey, you can't, that happened. I'm not sure. So anyway. This... Interestingly enough, this didn't get a release in America until a full year later. And that was a little bit delayed compared to, say, Mario Brothers, which saw an American release that same year. But yeah, we didn't get it in North America until the middle of '87. And so Japan had already had this for a year, and it had already, like, blown people away. Although, it must be said that the world was a lot smaller at that point, for people who didn't have, you know, jobs where they'd have to travel the world, or who didn't have a lot of money. Oh, I can just go here. Here's one secret that you use the raft with. It's not really a secret, you just can't do it until you get the raft. And here's another heart. So, that's nice. Back, you know, 15 years ago, before the internet really took off, it was fairly commonplace by even 15 years ago, but before about 15, so I guess maybe 20 years ago or so, before the N64 and the PlayStation eras, the world was still fairly disconnected, where we didn't really know a whole lot of what was going on in other regions super easy unless we, you know, knew people there, or, you know, were lucky enough to have the money where we could travel there ourselves or whatever. And there's that heart. I could finally get that heart. And now I've got a crap ton of hearts. I'm only missing the hearts that I get in the last few dungeons. I actually should be able to have enough money now, hearts now, where I can get the last heart, or the magic sword, before I go to the next dungeon. So I'm gonna work my way over there now. Trying to collect money as I go, because it's either this next dungeon or the one after where I'm gonna need to get another 100 rupees to get another bomb upgrade. So that's... Also, I really should buy the red potion again, just so that I have 2 chances to heal, because especially this next dungeon, I am dreading it. It is a nightmare. This is the dungeon with the whiz robes. Not looking forward to it. Oh, and I'm not going to bomb it, because I don't care, but over to the east, which I skipped, those long passages. One of those has a wall along the top that you can bomb, and it's another casino type thing where you can gamble and, you know, maybe get lucky and get lots of money. I'm not very lucky when it comes to stuff like that, so I usually lose a lot when I attempt that, and so I've learned the hard way in games to just not even bother with gambling, where it's actually truly luck-based. So I don't bother with that in this game for the most part. You know, if I'm emulating and I want to just save time, because I'm just playing for fun, to relax, you know, I'll save state there and I'll try it out, but, nah. And actually, since I'm talking about emulation, I might as well give a shout out, to Hegan. It used to be just a Super Nintendo emulator called BeastNES. And many of you in the emulation community and online have heard of BeastNES, and have probably heard some mixed things about it. the guy who makes it, who goes by Bu, shout out to Bu, you're seriously genius. It was the first ever Super Nintendo emulator to have 100% accuracy and compatibility down to cycle level accuracy, which is a very technical term for how CPUs work, and could play every single Super Nintendo game in the world completely accurately. That's insane. He spent a decade working on that, and he's still going. I mean, he's also, because that also involves, like, the Super Game Boy, which lets you plug in the Super Game Boy into the Super Nintendo and then plug in a Game Boy game. That means he also had to a degree, emulate Game Boys and Game Boy Color. So he also emulates those systems. And he decided to add in Nintendo emulation just because he was like, hey, might as well. So he also emulates Nintendo. And then he decided, just because he was already there, that he might as well do the Game Boy Advance as well. And so he decided that because he was doing all these things, to combine them all into one multi-system emulator, and renamed BeastNES. He didn't rename BeastNES, but he renamed his emulator program to Heigen. It's a Japanese term that I can't remember what exactly it means, because I don't speak Japanese very much at all, so I don't know that. But anyway, shoutouts to Heigen. The Nintendo emulation is fairly good. It's among the better ones. It's not perfect, but, you know, you can play most games. The reason why it's controversial is because he got really sick and tired of catering to other people's demands for what they wanted in his interface for the program itself. You know, I want this feature, I want this feature, I want this feature, I want this feature, I want to be able to do this, this, and this, and this. And he ended up spending a lot of time. There it is! There's the croissant! This is the power bracelet, which now appears there on the menu. You can see it there above the candle, along with the other things that are just permanent upgrades that I don't have to equip. That will allow me to push certain blocks. Yay, that's cool. And that actually enables me to get to, like that, for example, over there, those rocks over to the left, I can push a rock over there and I can access warps. And so now I have the ability to warp all around Hyrule. But it's a very finicky system that's kind of hard to figure out. Oh, come on. It's here. And this, by the way, is a shop for potions, which is very nice to know that secret, because this dungeon is an absolute nightmare. Did I have the exact amount needed? That's ridiculous. And before I end this episode, I'm gonna go ahead and grab the magic sword, because as a matter of fact, that up there is the next dungeon. I don't know why, but I sounded like Bing Bong with that up there. That's deja vu. That's Imagination Land. That's deja vu. I love Disney and Pixar, except for Cars. I can't stand those movies. And I loved Inside Out with all my heart. That was one of my favorite movies in a long time. This is the secret. So you come in here and, hey, look, it's the graveyard, and there's ghosts. Ooh, spooky, creepy. Actually, they look really sad. And that's kind of interesting. But you'll be like, oh, I was supposed to find the man in the grave. You might wander around this area trying to figure out, and then you might realize, well, none of these areas have anything. What about these? Can I push them? And you can actually push this one. And underneath it, master using it and you can have it. And I have enough. And look at that, that's just kind of cool. It's a diagonal sword, which makes it magical. It's not magic compared to the other ones, because you don't have any other abilities. When your hearts are full, you still fire off a beam, just like with the other ones, so that doesn't make sense. But this is so nice, because now I do 4 times as much damage as I did with the original wooden sword that Mr. Old Man It's Dangerous to Go Alone, Take This gave me. But yeah, you would wander around this graveyard going, oh, this is cool and spooky scary, what's going on here? Ah, crap. I'm just trying to see if I can actually push... Oh, wow, okay. Did these just endlessly spawn ghosts? Did I never bother to figure that out? Man, that would have been really trying as a gamer to come in here and be like, so am I supposed to push them and not really know? Anyway, so that's the entire graveyard. And you can actually come down here, and I'll just do this really quick. And I'm actually heading down towards the west end of the Lost Woods, where you will show up if you figure out the right pattern through it. And I couldn't tell you what the pattern is. But as you can see, this is actually the woods over here. And if I step one more to the right, I will get stuck in the Lost Woods, and I'd have to do the pattern again to get through it. So I'm not going to bother with that, because I really don't remember the pattern. But anyway, I just wanted to show that off. So I'll stop this here. I will start the next episode at the beginning of the next dungeon. So thanks for checking out GameEpoch. This is MystikDan signing out. I will see you in the next episode. Bye!